Woohoo! It is January 23rd. I cannot believe that it is January 23rd. Like, we are at the end of the month, the first month in 2019. Y'all remember 2000 and year 2000 Y2K? We never thought we would get there, right? Now we're in 2019. Whew. I don't know what you guys do during the day, but these days are moving and flying and just escaping my imagination of what is around me. Like, I just sometimes become robotic and mechanical in my actions. Hey, 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 good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Ask Zena radio show. I guess I forgot to tell you who I am. All right, let's start this on the right foot. Because last week you know that I was MIA, but I'll tell you about that. So thank you for tuning in to Ask Zena Radio. What is Ask Zena Radio? It is motivation, inspiration, manifestation, and all of those Asians that you need in your life to get it right, to live an abundant life, to live the best life possible. I am Zena, and I am an expert career coach, life coach, and spiritual coach / soul worker. What does that mean? It means those people that I work with their soul to get them right. Because you have the capacity within you to do whatever it is that you are here and want to do. So, I don't like to use the term life coach, but until it takes some momentum and some speed, until soul worker takes momentum and speed, we'll just use that. We'll play with that. I'm okay with playing around with words. I know who I am. I know what I do, and I know what my capacity is. So thank you for tuning into the Ask Zena radio show. Today, on this Wednesday, on this brisk Wednesday, January 23rd. Last week I was so prepared for you guys. I mean, I had it all prepared. But then, if you've listened to the Ask Zena radio show, you know that I talk about life happens, right? Some people say shit happens. I say life happens because that poop stuff, it happens too. But I try not to dwell in the negative. I am a glass half super duper full, not half empty. So if you've listened to some of our shows, or if you want to go back and listen to them on the Good News Radio show, Good News Radio station, please do so. This is episode 12, and so life happened for me last week. I got up early, was all ready, all prepared, had my makeup on because, as you know, I go to work, my job, after I leave this gig, which I love. I mean, my ideal life would be to be on the radio, doing workshops, motivating women, inspiring people all around the globe. Yeah, I'm a big thinker. So life happened for me last week. I'm driving along, and if you are in LA, you know that last week was terrible. All of the rain, it must have rained, 3 days out of the week, and bad rain. So I'm a native Angelino, and I'm just going to put it out there. We don't know how to drive in the rain. Like, what is the deal? Anyway, I'm driving along, looking at Waze, telling me how to get to the studio. It takes me about 2 hours to get here on Wednesdays. Not that I live that far. I could probably ride a bike and get here faster, but... So looking at Waze, got on the 110 to the 105, and someone tried to cut me off, so I veered over to the right-hand lane a little bit, or sort of the medium, the outskirts of the right-hand lane, and, you know, in my little road rage was like, how dare you, blippity blippity blip. and then got over, but I didn't get over in time because I didn't see this huge pothole and hit the pothole. And I was like, oh, dang. Have you guys ever seen The Secret? And it was like, in The Secret, it says, like, if you stub your toe, then other things are going to happen, and other things are going to happen, and like your day starts to just go wacky, right? Well, that was my day. But so then I hit a pothole, and I thought, oh, okay, all right, I'm just going to truck on along. The traffic is moving slow. I'm on the 105 freeway, probably going 17 miles an hour, and I hear poof, and my tire burst. Yep, got a flat tire. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was in the far fast lane, had to navigate myself over, got off on Crenshaw. Now, that is probably half the way from my house to the studio. So what was I going to do? And it was raining. And so I'm thinking, okay, Zena, you better put your own stuff into practice here and not freak out. You know, is your AAA card up to date? It wasn't. What are you going to do? Are you going to go into the studio? Are you going to go to work? Are you going to go back home? What are you going to do? And I pulled over. I got off the freeway and I drove my car with a flat tire all the way back to my area. And all the while, I didn't panic. I didn't freak out. I didn't like, oh, I'm not going to do the radio show. What's going to happen with work? I had a big day planned at work and whatever. And I just practice being in the moment. And I also practice, one of the things that I do is like just knowing that this time was temporary. This time was temporary and all is going to be okay. So we're going to get into the show because I've got some job search hacks for you, but I just wanted to show you how I use my own stuff. Like I practice what I preach. I walk the walk and I talk the talk. So drove all the way home, took the streets, took Crenshaw all the way down. When I remembered that I have a lifetime warranty on my tires. So when I left Arizona, I bought 4 new tires on my car, and I have a lifetime warranty on my tires. So let me just kind of skirt back. I have run flat tires. So I don't know if you guys know anything about run flat tires, but they're the best. You can actually drive 50 miles on a flat tire and you'll feel the wobbling, but you can drive 50 miles on a flat tire and then get to, you know, whatever your destination is, as long as you're not doing high speeds or anything like that. So I trucked on down in the rain, drove over to my area, and got to the tire place 7 minutes after they had opened. Mind you, I started my day like at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so it was like 8 o'clock now, driving with a flat tire in the rain. I get there. They don't even have a tire for my car. And I'm like, really? So I'm talking to the universe. I'm like, you gonna play me like that? Like, you gonna come at me like that? Okay. So either I'm going home and I'm canceling everything on my day because I need rest and need to just chill out by the ocean, or you're going to get me a tire and I'm going to get on my way and start my day. This is me talking to the universe. Again, when life happens, right? Sometimes we get all frazzled with the stuff that's going on that we start to spiral into whatever that abyss is in our lives and find the negativity. I don't have money for the tire. This raining. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. Blah, 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 blah. You start beating your own drum. Long story short, not only do I get a temporary tire on my car, but they order me a brand new tire. And guess what? I didn't pay zip. The tires on my car are like $300 to $400. I didn't pay a thing. And as I got in my car, the guy was talking to me and gave me some words of wisdom, young man from Oklahoma. He was like, gosh, you're really okay with all of this in the rain. I was like, you know what? I love the rain. So now I'm just going to take it slow, get to work. And he was like, well, come back this weekend. We'll check the rest of your tires and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, normally I start my day at work about 9 o'clock. I was only like late 14 minutes. So I was late 14 minutes and the day got so much better. I mean, I had a vice president call me to give me some good news, to give me accolades for doing a great job. I had some other great news. So the point that I'm trying to make here is just don't fall into the craziness and that monkey chatter that goes on in our minds when things happen, because the sooner you can realize that all of this stuff is temporary, the sooner life can start to move that away so that you can start receiving your blessings, right? Everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. So for me, the lesson was I going to spiral out of control and just freak out because all of these things were happening and I had an agenda? Obviously, the universe had a different agenda for me. And what was I going to let this just, blow me out for the rest of the day? Or was I just going to go with this and figure out what the lesson was so that I could get to the blessing? The blessing was I actually got two brand new tires, and I paid $31.50 for one tire because I got that lifetime replacement several years ago. But anyway, I didn't even know that the other tire needed something, right? And I got all this great news from people at work. So try not to spiral out of control when life happens, because life is going to continue to happen. And when you say stuff like, oh, darn, this again, or, I never can win, or stuff always happens to me. Guess what? It's always going to happen. And I think because I shifted my energy, then I started to manifest good things and other things started to come about. So that is my rant for today, that, yeah, last week life happened for me, and I didn't like it. I didn't like being out in the rain with a flat tire. My car is really, really low. And so, there's tons of potholes, and but I made it through, and all that is temporary and all is well. So, what I had prepared for you last week was to talk about interviews and interview questions, because we talked about that the month of January, I was going to help you get seen, get interviewed, and get hired. Remember? So we kind of talked about resumes and priority mail and how to be above the applicant pool by using priority mail and getting your resume in. I want to finish that with some interview hacks and just helping you to understand what happens behind the scenes and how literally you can get hired if you have the experience and if you tailor your resume. A lot of people will send out generic resumes. I just had yesterday, I had an internal candidate who wanted to apply for a position because she is losing her job. And she sent over a resume in all capital letters. And I thought, this is not going to go well. She's qualified, but when I shared the resume with the hiring manager, he said, no way. She has no attention to detail. She doesn't know how to communicate. And obviously, if this is her form of communication, she can't articulate herself well. So you see how something that you thought might be, oh, I'm going to put all my experience in capital letters because I want it to stand out. It actually did, but in the negative. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that. Hey, how are you doing? I'm getting some texts here, and you guys must not be downloading the app because you're not chatting with me. That's okay. You probably thought I fell off the planet. Nope. Episode 12, Ask Zena Radio. Remember we talked about that you can email me your HR questions. And if you have any HR questions, then, I will share them and give you a response anonymously. So I did have one HR question. Let me just pull it up here. And so this is from a young lady who is been on the job for 11 years, and she's been doing the same thing for about 5 years, and she wants to advance with the company. But unfortunately, every time she tries to post for a position, she never gets an interview or um, never gets never gets the job. And so most companies, just so that you know, are really about also about performance, performance and alliance. So let's talk a little bit about that. So this is your Ask Zena HR Corner on January 23rd. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into the Good News radio station and listening to me. So let's jump into this. So you've been with a company for a very long time, and you've been doing the same job for many years, and now you want to get a promotion. So what happens internally with a company is managers obviously talk, and people are watching you. Now, I don't know your circumstances, uh, CG. I don't know your circumstances as to what you've been doing, what your performance is, but I will tell you that if you have had any performance blips, that when you apply for an internal position, that is looked at, whether it's looked at through your employee file or it's talked about via your manager. And don't be surprised if you learn that your manager may not hold you in the highest regard. A lot of times, things that we've done in the workplace never go away. So an example of that might be maybe you've been with this company for 11 years and the first 2 years you were always late. Well, now it's what 9 years later, and people are still talking about, remember that time she was always late? So I tell people about positioning yourself. If you have some negative bleeps in your employment history, you have to take the time to reinvent yourself, to correct that, to overcompensate for that negativity. So if there were issues with you getting along with your supervisor or not getting along with other people, you have to take some time to overcompensate for that. And what I mean by that is take 6 months and give it 100%. Like, give it so much that everyone is talking about you, saying she has the best customer reviews and she's always on time, she stays a little bit late. Then they will forget the negative stuff. But here's what happens. The negative stuff goes from one person to another person. So even if that person, your supervisor, left, they will share with the other person, yeah, you got to watch her because she's always late. And so even if it was years ago, I know it doesn't make any sense. I know it feels like some of you will use the word discrimination, but it's not. It's the things that follow us. And so remember back in the day when you were trying to get into college and they were preparing you, and your career counselor at the school or your guidance counselor was saying you have to do this and do this and do this because all of that will follow you with your application to college. All of that stuff follows you. So we do a lot of crazy stuff nowadays. We share stuff on social media and we do all this stuff. And let me tell you, that stuff will follow you. Don't be surprised if even if you're internal and your supervisor Googles you or tries to find information about you just to see what type of employee you are. We're just living in such a subjective world. So going back to this lady, here's what I would do, CG. I would wait. I would find a job that my skills are transferable and that I could accomplish that job, and it would also give me development opportunity. But I would also get to know people in that department, get to know people within the company that I'm working for, have some alliances with management and or senior management where they would give you a strong recommendation or endorse your application. And then take a couple of months, not just a week where you're on time for an entire week, but take a couple of months where you're really putting in the effort and you're making yourself stand out in the organization. How can you do that if you're just in customer service or whatever position? You can do that a lot of ways. You can reduce the time in which you resolve a customer's situation. You can reduce the number of times that you're late for work. You can also come in and offer to do extra work. You can offer to learn something new. So make yourself valuable in an organization. That's how I will tell you how you can go about getting a promotion. The other thing is you may also have to leave an organization to get the compensation and or the title and the responsibilities that you feel that you deserve. Sometimes I know when I was at Disney, a lot of times people had to leave the organization to get to a higher level, to get the money and the title and all the responsibilities that they were looking for. So that is our HR corner. All right. Well, I had another question that came up, but we're going to jump into some interview stuff. So, someone is asking me. Okay, what is my background? So I have 20 plus years in human resources and recruitment and consulting and business consulting. I'm an author. I'm a public speaker. And I am also a motivational speaker. Plus, I feel like I wear 20,000 hats, but I'm a person who loves being busy. I also am on the radio, and as I said, a life coach, career coach, and spiritual coach. But what I really, really love doing is I love coming from a heart-centered place and helping people. So if I were to tell you anything about Ask Zena, and if I were to say anything about me, I would say I love, love, love coming from a heart-centered place and helping people. And I help people randomly. I could be flying on the airplane and talking to people, and I love helping people. So that's what I love doing. Yay. All right, jumping into this. So some job search hacks. I'm sorry I'm a little off. I am. I see my cup of coffee sitting way over there. But we're going to do this. All right. So we talked about the resume. Go back and listen to some of the episodes. If you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. But we talked about your resume. One thing about a resume is know what type of resume suits your background. So there's a chronological and then there's a functional resume. If you're someone who has had a lot of jobs or a lot of gaps in employment, what you want to do is have a more functional resume that actually highlights your skills and sort of doesn't emphasize how long you've been on each job and the titles and those sorts of things. It's a skill-based resume. Chronological resume starts from the present, works its way down, and it really goes through each particular position. One thing to note about a resume is you only need, at the very most, a 2-page resume. Don't send out a book. Don't do a 3-4 page resume. And you're like, but I have 20 years of experience. You only need to go back 10 years. The rest of the stuff you can do, in a job application or even on the interview. You don't need to go back beyond 20 years. So if you had a job, you had, 3 jobs in the last 5 years, and then you had 1 job for 11 years. Okay, that's enough time. You don't need to go back any further. And you don't need to put a date on when you graduated college. I know some people do that, but if you are more seasoned, like myself, you don't want to put that date because it's very subjective and someone may use that in terms of ageism and, you know, well, this person is that age and this person is that age. And so the whole thing about finding a job is to remove the subjectivity so that someone has the curiosity to bring you in for an interview. I know I talked about this before, but really, job search, interviewing, all of that stuff is like dating. How can that be? It just is. Think about going on a date. Okay, let's go back. Think about seeing someone at the grocery store that you're attracted to, right? Idris Elba. He is my dream guy. So 6 degrees of separation. Anyone know Idris? My email address is, no, just kidding. Not accepting applications. But anyway, but that might be a part-time. But okay, I digress. You know me. You have to flow with me when I'm having conversations. So it's like dating. You see someone at the grocery store, right? And that person is attractive and they come over there and they give you their number. That's like applying online. They give you their number. Are you going to call that person? Okay, you call that person. Now you've reviewed the resume. Looks interesting. Okay, we schedule a time at Starbucks. We sit down and have a conversation. That's the initial screening. That's the, can this person really articulate who they are? Can this person articulate their experience? Okay. No, not Denzel, Keith. No, Idris. Something about that British accent. Anyway, so, you sit down for coffee and you have coffee with that person and then that person is sharing something with you. This is a pivotal time in the interview or the screening process because if you talk too much, you're overselling. So if you're on a date, first date, and someone is talking, and they never ask you any questions, are you going to be interested in calling that person again? Are you going to be interested in going out with that person again? Or are you going to be like, next? What about if that person talks about their ex all the time? Is that going to be something that's going to be of interest to you? No. So that initial conversation is a very, very important conversation. You want to have it be flowing and engaging, and you want to ask questions, just like an interview, right? Never be the type of interviewer, the type of candidate that just sits there, listens to the interview and say, well, do you have any questions? No, you've told me everything that I need to know. No. No one tells you everything you need to know until you get into that environment. Have some questions. Have some questions about the company. All right. So then you go on a second date. Now it's a planned actual date. You're not meeting at Starbucks. You're going on a date. That is the final interview process. Now you want to look good. You want to smell good. You are interested. You're interested in the company. I'm dancing here. I'm going from a date to an interview. It's the same thing. It's the same dance. Whatever dance that's out there, it's the same dance. So it's a formal interview. It's a final interview. It's a scheduled date. How are you going to feel? You want to wear something that makes you feel attractive, powerful, confident, right? Same thing on an interview. You want to wear something. Don't go in there with some tight pants or a tight skirt or your boobies all out and, or you're uncomfortable because your nails aren't done or whatever. This is the make or break. This is where you're going to get the offer. So you go in there, you're feeling good, you're feeling comfortable, you've done some research, you've had a chance to digest some of the information that you've had from the screening or from the first interview. Go in there prepared. Go in there like, you know what? This is what I want. Such as when you do on a second date or whatever that date. You go out on that date with the anticipation like, I want to get to know this person. This is someone I want to get to know. It's the same thing. The reason why I say it's like a date is because I'm trying to take the intimidation out of looking for a job. So many times people will sit in front of me and it's like, So do you have any questions? No. They're looking around. There's no eye contact. They can't even articulate what's on their resume. When you ask them about stuff that they have on their resume, they're like, "Well, I was kind of part of that. I kind of did that. I have working experience, or it's so long ago, or that was a team that I was on." If it's on your resume, you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to say that you've done it, and really, express yourself to where it's someone understands, oh, this person knows how to do code, and they know how to write this, and they know how to troubleshoot technical issues, and they know how to problem solve, and all of these things. Anyway, kind of off on a tangent, but if you think about interviewing and looking for a job like dating, then that takes the intimidation out of it. So we're going to go back. I was talking about a resume. Resume only needs to be 2 pages, and only needs to go back 10 years. So, 1, you've identified what kind of resume you need, functional or chronological, and then you tailor the resume. You get a strong template, and you tailor the resume for each job that you apply to. Now, there's some resistance there. I already feel it. Because people are like, well, I apply to 100 jobs all the time. Well, if you apply to 100 jobs and you're not getting a call for an interview, your odds are crappy. You're not doing this right. It's like, stop throwing shit up against the wall and expecting it to stick, because here's what'll happen. You'll find a knucklehead job and you'll be out of a job in a year because you're not invested in your own career. Whether you're the janitor or the receptionist or the CEO, you're not invested in your own career to do a little research. So you really want to not apply to 100 jobs. You want to be very selective as to the type of company and the type of position you apply for and where it's located and the money. Because I just interviewed a guy from IT, and this guy had 9 jobs in the last maybe 20 years. And every one of the jobs he had was, well, I got laid off. I got laid off. I got laid off. I got laid off. And I will tell you, from a human resources perspective, I'm a little leery of that. I get it that companies lay off all the time. I get it. But companies also lay off people that they don't feel that are as valuable. Not everyone gets laid off in the whole IT department. Sometimes they'll lay off the entire department because maybe they're restructuring or something like that. But not everyone gets laid off. I want you to know what happens from a human resources standpoint. We look and assess everyone's background as we're deciding to lay off either a department or a group of people or a classification of people. And we see whether or not these people have added value, and then what their tenure is. There's a lot of considerations there. So just don't think that everyone gets laid off. So going back to that, if you have every excuse is laid off, my gut tells me that he probably got fired in some of those jobs, and layoff is just the excuse. But, okay, if he got laid off at every one of those jobs, what does that say about him? And some of you are probably saying, well, it doesn't say anything about him. That's just the state of the economy, and companies lay off all the time and blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't you have done some homework? Because if a company laid off once, they probably laid off before. So wouldn't you have done some homework to see where the company is in terms of their growth, their acquisitions, their mergers, what's going on with their leadership? I mean, you can prevent some of this in terms of, just going to another situation and just, serendipity, I got laid off here. You're saying, no, that's not possible. It is possible. Doing your homework. If you go to a company and you see that their history is every 2 years that they're acquiring a new company and they're laying off in this area, what you need to do is, if you do accept a job there, you need to make yourself valuable and move into another area. And when we get into the interview questions, you can ask that question. When was the last time the company had a layoff? You can ask those questions in the interview process. It doesn't make you look bad. It just shows that you're interested in what the future is with this company. You are interviewing the company, and the company is interviewing you at the same time. So, you've got a good resume, you've tailored your resume, you've tweaked your resume. You need to go back and listen to episode number 11 and do some priority mail on your resume. I won't go into all of that, but there were some really, really good tricks that I shared on how to get seen in like less than a week. I shared two stories of two people who got hired in less than a week, got job offers, really, really good job offers by using priority mail. So you need to go back and listen to that. I'm not going to go into that, but let me just tell you, snail mail is probably the biggest job hack for job search that's out there. Everyone wants to do everything online, texting and all of this stuff, but if you really want to rise above the entire applicant pool, you need to look at priority mail. Hey, someone working at the post office, you need to call the Good News radio station, because you might need me to give you a couple of things on the shout outs on the radio, and sponsor. Reach out to Keith so you can sponsor a piece or something like that. Anyway, because I do really believe that priority mail will help you, and I've seen it. So let's go into the interview. Let me just tell you. I think I told you this before. Another really, really, really important job hack is, if you're looking for a job, do not answer your telephone. People are like, what the hell? Don't answer your phone. If you're looking for a job and you've sent out a whole bunch of resumes, and you see an unknown number, something you don't recognize, don't answer your phone, because you only get one opportunity to make a good impression. And if you answer your phone and you've got the TV on in the background, or you've got the kids crying in the background, or you're driving, or you're not prepared to have a conversation, a recruiter is going to call you. Hey, Cindy, have your resume in front of me, wanted to talk to you about your background. Well, I don't know which job that is. Can you send me something? Can you tell me this? Can you do this? I don't have to do anything, because I have 39 or 139 or 439 candidates who are eager, willing, and interested to talk to me right here, right now. I know that sounds arrogant, but you have to understand, from the desk of a recruiter, we have hundreds of jobs and thousands of applicants. We don't have to stop for one person. So that's really important to know, because you only get that one opportunity. So if you do answer the phone, you could say, I'm in a place right now that doesn't have very good reception. Can I call you back in 30 minutes? I like that response, because if you call the recruiter back in 30 minutes, the recruiter is anticipating your call, and guess what you get to do? Pull up your resume on your phone, pull over, be able to have a clear conversation so that you can get invited in for an interview. So definitely don't answer your phone, or be prepared to have a conversation. And never, ever, ever be those people that, I've applied for thousands of jobs. Which job is this? How much money are you paying? You will be in a pile or a file on my desk. So you get invited in for the interview. Let's talk about a couple of interview questions that really, really make sense. The interview, you need to be prepared. You need to have done some research on the company. Just a little research. Heck, just go to their website. And here's where, this is a good job hack. Go to their website and go to either community, media, or news, right? Go to those tabs on the website and find out what they're doing in the community. Who's saying what about the company? What's going on with the company? I wouldn't take the first story that's up on the top. I would scroll down maybe 2 or 3 stories below and see what they've done, like in the last month, in the last year. The reason why I say that is because if you come in and you give that information to a recruiter, they're going to assume that, wow, This person has taken the time to research the company. You might even give the recruiter information that they didn't have. And then it comes across as like, okay, this person is really interested in being part of this organization because they've done their homework. Or this person really can add value to this organization because they've done their homework, right? So that's a good tip. So now you're there, you're interviewing. The other thing is do some research on the person you're interviewing with. Go to LinkedIn and pull up some information on that person. So I'm going to go back to the dating scenario, right? Because what do you do when you're on a date? You give a compliment. Hey, you look nice today. Hey, whatever. And when you compliment that person, I'm telling you, that will open up the door and sort of the airs of the intimidation won't be there. Hello.
Hello.
Keith just walked in.
This is yours.
With a sweatshirt for me?
Yes. I know you said extra large, but the large is really big.
Okay.
So, yes.
I like it.
All
I
right.
got a sweatshirt.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Till next time. See.
Hey, can you check the door?
I will check the door.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Yeah. Close all the way.
No, in the front. Like make sure that it's gonna lock.
Close that one?
No, that one. Sorry, you guys. We're just having a live. So it will lock?
No, yeah, you just close all the way and it should lock up.
Okay.
Close all the way.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sometimes when the weather gets cold, like the doors shrink.
Oh, okay. See ya. Bye. You know, when you're on the radio and you're doing something live, you just got to flow with it. Anyway, so I got my Good News Radio sweatshirt. Yay. He's so nice. Okay. So we were talking about interviews. So do some homework on the person you're going to interview with. So such as I said about dating, right? It's like you give a compliment. If you walked in and you said you were interviewing with me and you're like, oh, I noticed that you've worked for all of these different entertainment companies. How does this company differ? It was like, wow, okay. So you're interested. Okay, you've done your homework. That's very impressive. And so think about it if someone came to you on a date, like your formal date, and you told this person that you really, really liked, okay, I'm a little quirky, you like blue Post-its, right? And this dude shows up and he brings you like these really pretty blue Post-its because he remembered the conversation that you guys had in the grocery store and you were saying, I can't find blue Post-its. And he shows, isn't that endearing? Aren't you just going to like let down all of your guards and be willing to engage in a conversation with this person? Aren't you going to be like, wow, that person showed some interest? Again, interview, job search, just like dating. Okay. So let's get into some of these questions. So I want you to ask at least 3 to 5 questions while you're in an interview. And so one of the questions that I really think is very, very important is, can you walk me through a typical day at this company? You really want to understand what a typical day is because a job description is just very generic. It's not really going to go into a lot of details. This is a good question too. So, does this company offer additional training and or continued education? Now, you want to preface that in a way that it's like, because I really want to be with this company long term. So if I were asking that question, I would say, you know what, this is a great organization, and I can see that people have stayed here for a very long time based upon what you're sharing with me. Is there any way for me to grow and develop in this company? Does a company offer training in other areas or continued education? Again, I'm showing that I'm really, really vested and I'm really, really interested in this company, right? So that's a great question. You can say, what are some of the largest or what are some of the issues that this team or this position have faced or are facing given the structure of the company? So if the company is changing structure, if this is a new department, you could ask something like that. And this is a really, really good question. What are the priorities for this position? So, in the next 2 to 3 months, what are the major priorities or the major projects that need to be tackled within this position? Um, and then, lastly, I really, really like here's the thing that people never, 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 never do. They never ask about how am I? What do you think about me in this position? How do you feel that I'm qualified? And I'm going to preface that in a different way. But a lot of times I'll get people that will ask me questions after they've interviewed and after I've declined them. And they're like, well, what can I do better? A corporate recruiter cannot tell you, cannot be your career coach to say, hey, this was the feedback. This was the feedback. They didn't like this. They didn't like that. Because we're obligated to the company. So we can't give you that information because you can then use it against us in a discriminating way. But here's a way to find out where you measure in the interview process and in the candidate pool. So you can say something like, what would make me or someone like myself very successful in this position? And have I articulated my experience in a way that you would feel that I am the right fit for this position? So you can say something like that. Or you can say really, really simply, where do you see me in this organization? And someone will say, like, I see you in this particular position. I see you in this role. I can see you, in this position, and then, maybe in a management role or a supervisor role in a year from now. You can say something like, how do I measure up to all of the other applicants? Just ask about yourself. Ask about where you are in the process for this particular position. Don't you want to know? Why would you walk away from a job interview blindly thinking, I think it went well. I think it went well. I think they're going to call me. They're going to call me. I was going to have a conversation with a candidate, a top executive, who I was trying to place at a company, had the most amazing, perfect background for this particular job. Let me tell you what this candidate did that turned me off and probably blew the interview. Everything that he said, he was always like, so you understand what I'm saying, right? Everything. It was like always after every question or every explanation about his background or talking about the different companies, he would always say, you understand what I'm talking about, right? Do you know how arrogant that comes across? That comes across like, no, let me break it down to you because you're so stupid. You don't understand what I'm saying. So I'm just going to ask you again. Remember those teachers, they would ask you, I'm going to ask you again. Do you understand this? So he would always say, so you understand what I'm talking about, right? So let's say I said, well, why did you leave XYZ company? And he'll say, well, management changes and this happened and this happened and this happened. But you understand what I'm talking about, right? Okay, once, twice, but every time, that's a little arrogant. And so I didn't move forward with him. And I'm talking about a huge placement fee. Huge placement fee that, like, I would have been able to buy a whole new car if I placed this guy at this particular company. But he was just so arrogant, I couldn't put him in front of my clients. And so we really want to watch that. Have an engaging conversation. So I want to go through this a little bit quickly because we're just about at the close getting to the top of the hour. That's my British term. At the top of the hour. Yes, I watch a lot of PBS and BBC. Anyway, that's why, Keith, I said Idris Elba, not Denzel. Anyway, so now you've interviewed, you've thought that went well, you've asked where you are, how you place against all of the other candidates, and then hack number, I don't know, whatever. But have an envelope, a thank you envelope already prepared, so when you walk out that door, you're dropping it off at the post office. Hey, you post office people, seriously, you need to give me some sponsorship here. So so you have an envelope, with a card, blank card. Thank you so very much for your time. I learned a lot from you with regards to this position and with regards to the company. I look forward to having another conversation with you. Please let me know if there's anything that I could offer you with regards to my references. Something simple. You don't have to make it wordy. You could just make it, thank you so very much for your time. Look forward to hearing from you, right? So now that is being sent out to whomever you interviewed with. Do not, let me tell you another mistake that candidates make. Do not call the recruiter or the hiring manager, even if they gave you their card. Do not call them on a weekly basis to understand where you are in the candidate process. We talked about in one of the episodes where I actually showed you the percentage. So within a week, okay, I'll give it 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, if you haven't received a phone call back as a follow up to say where you are, chances are you probably didn't get the job. Here's a clear indicator that you are in the serious running for getting a job. If at the end of an interview, someone says to you, well, the next step is a formal interview with such and such. If they give you a name, if they give you a title, then that shows that that's a clear indication that you are in the running. If they end the interview and say, well, we're interviewing other applicants, we'll get back to you, that's an indication that you're not in the running, right? But even in that situation, you can turn that around. And so I'm just going to say really briefly, because we are getting close. Probably I shouldn't have ranted, but one of the ways of turning around a bad interview is, again, going back and doing your homework, doing your research. I would have the job description in my hand. I would have company information in my hand in front of me, right, on the computer. And then I would write a really great email to the person that I interviewed with to say, so, talk about something about the company, talk about something about the job, and tie it into your experience, so that if it's something that you weren't able to talk about while you were in the interview, or maybe it was just time ran out or whatever, you can then bring up this, because it's a key point in what the company is doing, the company's vision, the company's value, or it's a core requirement within the job description that maybe you wanted to elaborate on with regards to your experience. Anyway, that can turn around a bad interview really, really quickly and keep you in the running. So, you've got the resume, you know not to answer your phone, you know how to tweak and tailor, you're comfortable because it's like dating and you're feeling comfortable. You've made a compliment because you have done your homework and you've researched the person you're interviewing. You've done your homework on the company. You've had an in-person interview, and now you should be ready to negotiate the position. One of the other places that really stump people is salary and what should you be asking. You know that companies are not allowed to ask for W-2s or what you were earning, which actually goes into your advantage, because here's what I would do is I would go to Glassdoor and I would see what like positions are paying within that area. So if it's like Inglewood, what like positions are paying for a producer or an associate producer or a coordinator, and then when the position is offered to you and they offer a salary to you, then you could start off, well, I understand the compensation for this position with someone with my skills and experience is $50,000, $70,000, $90,000. However, I'm negotiable. Do you have a number in mind? So that would be your response. Here's where people totally blow it. I had a producer coordinator that I interviewed the other day from, I think, Connecticut. And he thought that because it's LA, you must be paying all kinds of money. And he told me, I'm looking for 175,000. I put him on mute and I laughed. And then I got back on the phone and I said, you know, a producing coordinator doesn't make that kind of money in our environment. So we're not even playing in the same ballpark. And at that point, I was ready to end the conversation. But he clearly was so off the mark that I got him down. And this is just not a good thing as well. I got him down to about $90,000, and he was interested in a position for about $90,000, which really said a lot about his character and a lot about his judgment. Because if you're going to throw off such a large number and be willing to negotiate, I mean, 90,000, 175,000, that's a lifestyle difference. That's a huge lifestyle difference. I don't even talk to people who are willing to make lifestyle differences because clearly they're not going to stay in an organization. They're not going to stay a long time. Anyway, you guys can tell I have like tons of experience and tons of stories, and you want to know more, you can always reach out to me at Coach.AskZena at gmail.com. But anyway, so go to Glassdoor, find out what the industry is paying for that particular city, for that particular job, so that when you go to negotiate your compensation, you can come across as intelligent and say, this is what I understand industry standards are. However, I'm willing to negotiate, because they're not going to ask you, and it is illegal for someone to ask you, so what were you earning on your last job? They will ask it in a way like, okay, what are your salary expectations? What are you looking for? And then it gives you a little bit more room. So in some cases, I've hired someone who was like from Las Vegas, and they were making like $36,000. And then I brought them into a job that, now they're earning $60,000 because of the fact that I can't ask what were they earning on their last job, right? So that's a great win-win. So, use these changes in the legislation and in law and all of that. And then also, just lastly, I just want to touch upon, because we did do this on the first episode, talked about all the different companies that hire people with felonies. Know your employment laws in your area. When the application says, have you ever had a criminal background? That only means in the last 7 to 10 years. Know your employment laws. I mean, you don't have to give out all this information. When I thought about doing Ask Zena and thought about from the career standpoint and really sharing this information, this really is to help all of you guys who are looking for a job. Like, I really get to take my recruiter hat off, lift the veil, share all of these secrets, share all of this insight with you so that you can find a job, position and package your background appropriately so that no doors are slammed on you. I mean, if you're embellishing your background, obviously I can't do anything about that. But if you have a strong background and you are a right fit for a company, you should at least be getting an interview, and you should at least be contacting me so that I can help you through the process. But in doing this Ask Zena, it really is an opportunity where I get to share all of my 20 years of recruiting experience with you guys so that you guys can get a job, so that you guys can package yourself, and so that you can understand your own brand. And add in a little bit rants and traffic and LA and my little corniness and all of that other stuff. So anyway, I've done so much talking today, and I hope that this was of value to you guys. I hope that what I've shared with you made a lot of sense, and I'm just here to help you any way that I possibly can. Get seen, get interviewed, and get hired. This is the end of our job search episode. We're going to go into some other stuff. Coming February, we're going to interview some people. We're going to have some live guests here. I want to show you how to really live the best life possible. I want to show you how to start manifesting some things. Hey, did you guys see that blood moon on just this weekend, right? Did you know that that energy shifted and you could actually start manifesting a life that you desire? Hey, Jackie. Anyway, this is the Ask Zena radio show. I have had the pleasure, and thank you for honoring me to listen today. Yes. Tune in to the Good News radio station and check out all the rest of our radio shows, our live shows, and listen to Ladies Night on Friday night. I want to come. Jackie, you have to invite me down on a Friday night. I've got some stories to tell. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. I am off. It is hump day. Peace and blessings.